My name is Shannon Crosby, and I'm a registered dietitian with CoxHealth Wellness. And today I'm going to talk to you about the stages of change and how to set health goals for success. Have you ever felt like you know what you need to do to change your health behaviors, but you just can't seem to get it together to actually make the changes? Maybe you want to quit smoking, maybe you want to lose weight, start exercising, eat more vegetables, get more sleep. So before we get started, I would like for you to think about a health-related behavior that you would like to change and either catalog that in your head to refer to throughout this presentation or even write it down. And so today, we're going to talk about what steps you need to go through to actually start making those behavior changes and identifying kind of where you're at in the behavior change process. And so we're going to describe the trans-theoretical model of change, which is the official name for this process. We're going to talk about the stages of change and relate those stages of change to individual health behaviors. And then we're going to identify the individual processes of change, which are things that we engage in as we progress through the stages. We do so many things in life that are automatic. You wake up in the morning and there are probably a series of events, series of behaviors that you engage in that you don't even think about. You brush your teeth, you wash your hair, drive to work. Some days you can't even remember the processes that you engaged in to get to work. How we spend our free time, how we choose to eat, all of these things are very routine. And some of the routines that we have developed over time that we perform kind of rotely, we've developed and are pushing us toward a path of poor health in regard to nutrition and exercise. Maybe we're in a routine of going straight home after work and sitting on the couch for a few hours and watching TV because we're tired and we're trying to rest. Maybe we're in a routine for supper that involves putting a frozen pizza in the oven for dinner. Maybe we're in a morning routine that includes a stop at the gas station for donuts and a sugary coffee. So we need to change that mapping, change those templates in our brain so that we get different outcomes. Because if we just go through the motions and we never really engage in the processes that are leading us to these behaviors, then we're never going to change those behaviors. If we never change, we're going to solidify these unhealthy behaviors. And so we want to change the templates in our mind to promote healthy behaviors so that these become routine and things that we engage in without a whole lot of thought. And so the trans-theoretical model of change is a model used in health psychology to explain a person's success or failure in making a health change. It attempts to answer why some of our changes stick or why a change is not made. This model has been shown over and over again to be successful in changing many different health behaviors, including starting an exercise program, wearing sunscreen, quitting smoking, and even quitting drug use. The trans-theoretical model of change has found that people move through a series of 5 changes in the adoption of a new health behavior or stopping an unhealthy behavior. And these stages that we go through are predictable. We all go through them. However, we go through them at different rates. And sometimes we can get stuck at a certain stage and find it difficult to move on to the next stage. Also, the research has shown that there are certain predictors of progression through the stages of change. And so we're going to talk about those predictors, those processes of changing in relationship to the health behavior that you identified. The first stage is called pre-contemplation. And in pre-contemplation, it's like ignorance is bliss. People in this stage are usually very resistant to the idea of changing. A person in this stage has no intention of changing their behavior in the near future. People in this pre-contemplation stage are often described as being resistant or unmotivated. They tend to avoid any information or discussion or thought in regard to the health behavior. Say someone is a smoker and someone walks up and tries to talk to them about the health effects of smoking. They're going to walk away or change the subject or say that they don't want to hear it. Or maybe they're watching TV and an anti-smoking advertisement comes on. They're going to change the channel. They might be defensive about their behavior if those around them are putting pressure on them to change. This stage can also be thought of as denial. Some people who are in this pre-contemplation stage have maybe tried to change in the past unsuccessfully, and they've given up. Maybe they've tried over and over and over, and they've just decided that they're not going to try anymore. And so it's kind of, for some people, rock bottom, a dangerous place to be because it can impact their health and problems that may not be able to be reversed. This is a case study of a patient named Dale. Dale is a 65-year-old man who lives in a rural Missouri town. He's a retired farmer, and he's smoked since trying cigarettes with his friends at age 17. He has developed emphysema and requires oxygen in order to breathe. His doctor says that the emphysema is due to his smoking, although Dale denies that this is true. He is not convinced that smoking is harmful, despite information from his doctor, his family, and his friends. He gets mad and upset when anybody tries to talk to him about quitting smoking, and he immediately changes the subject. Now, we're going to think about the health behavior that you identified and determine if you might be in the pre-contemplation stage. If you're not sure, here are some questions to consider. Do you discuss your behavior pattern, or are you defensive and tell people to mind their own business? Are you well informed about your behavior and its consequences, or do you actively avoid information? Do you turn the TV channel when a show or a commercial comes on that might address your behavior? And then number 3, are you willing to take responsibility for the consequences of your behavior? Do you associate your high triglyceride with having a poor diet? Do you understand that not using sunscreen might cause you to have an increased risk for skin cancer one day? Or are you in denial about these things? And so if you answered no to one or more of these questions, then you might be somewhat in this pre-contemplation stage. The second stage is contemplation. And in the contemplation stage, people are more aware of the personal consequences of their bad habit, and they start to spend some time thinking about the problem. They can consider the possibility of changing, but they're a little ambivalent about it. They aren't thinking about changing anytime soon. This is the stage where you acknowledge that you have something to change, but you haven't taken the steps. But at least you're willing to talk about it. You're thinking about it. You might have a conversation with somebody about it. You might pick up a magazine and read an article about it. You have a desire to change, but at the same time, you have a pretty significant resistance to change too. In this stage, people are kind of at a fork in the road. They're weighing the pros and cons of changing. Your familiar self is fighting against your improved self. And the familiar self is your friend. You like her and you know what she does and who she hangs out with. You're not sure you want to get to know the improved self because who is she and what does she do? If she's not engaging in that behavior, then what's she doing instead? Some people stay in this stage for a lifetime, and you probably know somebody who's like this. They think and think and think and think about giving up the habit, and they may die thinking about it, but they never get beyond this stage. In my work as a dietitian, I encounter people sometimes who are in this stage with weight loss. They want to lose weight, they think about it, they talk about it, they mull over different ideas for doing it, but they're never really able to make changes to actually lose weight and keep it off. And so they might stay overweight for years or even decades. In this stage, we want to focus on not getting stuck here. And so there are some behaviors that I see in people that really kind of perpetually stay here. Nearly every day I have people who are asking me or emailing me or calling about a new weight loss miracle. Sometimes it's a pill or a supplement or even a special food product. And the pill or supplement or food is supposed to have magical qualities to boost metabolism or blast fat or whatever. Believe me, if there was a magic pill for wellness and health, I would be promoting it, but there isn't a magic pill, unfortunately, and so I see people wasting a lot of time and effort and money trying to find it. And so if you're one of those people that's looking for an easy way or a magic pill, you've got to get that out of your mind and stop looking for it because it's not there. So that's one of the first things to think about. Sometimes it's wishful thinking. I want to eat chocolate cake and I want to lose weight too. And so more often what I hear people say in relation to weight loss is that I want to lose weight, but when we actually start talking about changing the behaviors and the things that they're doing that are keeping them at their current weight or causing them to gain weight, they really don't want to change those behaviors and habits. So if we keep doing the same thing over and over and over, we can't really expect to have a different outcome. And so think about maybe if you engage in some of that wishful thinking, that you want to change, but you're really not willing to make those individual hard decisions. And then finally, waiting for the perfect time. How many times do we think about making a behavior change in the future and we'll change it at that time? You know, it's the beginning of 2017 and so many people have put off making changes until the new year and setting a New Year's resolution, or waiting till after the holidays to focus on health or exercise or weight loss, or waiting until a stressful period of time in your life has passed. And the issue is that we never have a time that's perfect for making these changes. There's always going to be something stressful at work or at home or in our life, a reason to not do it. And so stop waiting for the perfect time and realize that half the battle is acknowledging that you have to make these changes within all the issues and stresses in your life. And that's part of being successful. So now we're going to do a contemplation activity. And so I want you to think about the behavior that you identified, and I want you to write down the pros of changing the behavior. Why would it be a good thing for you to quit smoking or lose weight or eat healthier? So go ahead and write down the pros of changing. And then once you've identified a couple of those, think about the cons of changing. It's not all sunshine and lollipops. There are going to be some things that you have to give up. Write down those too. Maybe it's chocolate cake, or maybe it's your evenings watching TV, if you're going to start an exercise program or something like that. In the beginning of changing, your list of pros might be short, and your list of cons to changing might be very, very long. But as you move through the stages of change, it's like looking at those negatives in the rear view mirror. They get farther and farther as you're driving away. They're getting farther and farther and farther away. And they become less important. And as you get toward your goal, the pros of changing become bigger and stronger and more important to you. And so that's a sign that you're starting to move away from this stage and moving on into the next one. The next stage, stage 3, is preparation. And in preparation, people have decided that they want to change. They might say, I've got to do something about this. This is serious. Something has to change. What do I do? And so preparation is a research phase. We're starting to take small steps toward changing. We're trying to gather information about what we're going to need to do to change their behavior. That might include reading about the behavior or looking on the internet. Maybe we'll talk to a doctor or a medical professional for advice or sign up for a class. Maybe we'll talk to friends or family members who have done this same behavior change to find out what methods they used. Should I join Weight Watchers, or should I join Jenny Craig? Should I try the paleo diet? Should I join a Zumba class or buy a new pair of shoes? I think about the preparation stage, and I think about how we prepare for other things. Think about, in August. In August, we start to hear all of these news stories about tropical storms or hurricanes that are out in the Atlantic Ocean that are heading toward the United States. And the weather people are real excited to start making projections about where the storm is going to track and how strong it's going to be and where it's going to hit. And some people that are within the path of those storms are going to hear those warnings and start to prepare. Maybe they're going to do things outside in their yard or their property or to their home to kind of prepare for the storm to come. If it's severe enough, they might make preparations to evacuate. They start to prepare for the event. However, every single time, despite all of the warnings, many which come days ahead of time, there's still going to be people that are caught unprepared, that get stuck on their property, or we see them on the news that are having to be rescued. And we're sitting in Missouri thinking, well, we knew about this 10 days ago, and we knew this thing was going to happen, so why didn't you prepare a little better? Preparation is getting ready before we know the hurricane is coming. We can't expect to weather that behavior change without preparing for it. But so often when we want to change a health behavior, we don't prepare. We set a date and then expect to just change on that date, whether it's a New Year's resolution or something. We have to remember that preparation is a very, very important part of changing our behavior. So it might include getting a prescription for a medication to help us with quitting smoking, or enrolling in a smoking cessation class. Researching alternative things to do instead of smoking, like exercise, or finding ways to keep our hands busy, like woodworking or knitting or something like that. Some people try to quit cold turkey, and that is skipping that preparation stage. And so often the research shows us that those people are not as successful because they haven't adequately prepared. So don't forget about the preparation stage. One of the things that can help us with the preparation stage and preparing for actually changing the behavior is evaluating our confidence. There are two things to determine whether a person has a strong commitment, and that is called the confidence scale. And so think about these two things on a scale of 1 to 10, and 1 is not very important and 10 is very important. How important is it for you to change the behavior that you wrote down? How important on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 not important and 10 important? Probably if you're listening to this presentation and you were aware enough to write down that behavior, you may have a pretty good importance level. The next thing to think about is, how confident are you that you will be successful? On a scale of 1 to 10, give yourself a rating, with 1 not confident at all and 10 is very confident. And so the question is, where did you score on that confidence scale? If you scored 7 or greater, that is a good indication that you're ready to move on into the next stage. But if you scored lower than 7, you might struggle with confidence. You could prepare all you want, but if you don't truly believe that you are going to be able to change this behavior, then that is going to undermine your efforts. Some of the things that you can do to help improve your confidence is to identify areas in your life that you're really successful. Maybe you're successful with your relationships or your friendships. Maybe you really pride yourself on your organizational skills. Identify what you're good at, and everybody has something. If you don't have something you can identify that you're good at, then ask your friend or your family member, and they probably can tell you a few things that you excel at. Then think about how you can relate those strengths and skills to the behavior you're trying to change. If you're organized and you're trying to maybe lose weight, maybe one of the things that you can do is really spend a lot of time doing your meal planning and keeping a food journal and those types of things, because those kind of play into being an organized person. If you have social relationships and friendships that you value, maybe find a buddy to help you stay accountable, or to work out with, or to communicate with and help support you in that way. Those things can help you build your confidence to improve your chances that you'll be able to change the behavior. All right, now we're going to move on to the 4th stage of change, and this is action. This is the stage where we actually work on changing the behavior. This is where the magic happens. We're actively involved in behaviors to help us change our health behavior that we've identified. And there are lots of different techniques that we can use in action. Surprisingly, this is the shortest of all the stages. We spend the least amount of time here. Typically it's about 6 months, but it could be even shorter. For some people, the action stage can be an hour or 2. Have you ever said, I'm going to start a diet on Monday, and then Monday rolls around and you get to work and somebody brought in donuts, and so then you're like, okay, I'll start next Monday. That can be a really, really short action phase. So action, again, the thing that we don't want to do is rely on our own willpower, on white knuckling it. We ideally are using that preparation, the information we gathered in the preparation stage, to help us in the action phase. If you haven't prepared well, action is often going to be very, very short and not very successful. Some of the methods that we might use in the action phase include self-monitoring. Self-monitoring is a fancy way of saying write it down. Examples of self-monitoring might be keeping a food journal or an exercise journal. It could be keeping track of how many cigarettes you smoked in a day. It could be keeping track of your weight and weighing in every week or something. Self-monitoring helps people understand more about their habits and helps us to reveal patterns that may explain problem behaviors. Writing our food down in the all day might help reveal that we eat more than we thought when we take candy out of the community candy dish 3 or 4 times a day. And so seeing it written down helps you face what is happening when you're unconsciously overeating, for example. Another method that can be helpful in the action phase is called stimulus control. And stimulus control alters the environment that we spend our time in to try to minimize any kind of stimuli that might cause you to engage in the undesired behavior. For example, with overeating or eating unhealthy food, keep those unhealthy trigger foods out of your home so that you aren't tempted to overeat them. Meal planning, making a list, and sticking with that list while you're grocery shopping can help you with keeping unhealthy food out of the house. Storing food in cupboards or out of sight can help cause people to eat less. And then the opposite can be true even with healthy eating. If you put healthy foods out on the counter, like a bowl of fruit, or have vegetables cut up and ready to go in the fridge, that can help you eat more of those healthy foods. At work, try to stay away from the vending machines, or don't take cash or change with you so that you don't have money to buy. And if you're in the habit of stopping at a gas station or going through the coffee line in the morning and getting some not so healthy drink options, consider taking a different route to work, or doing something to alter that environment so that you're not tempted to engage in those behaviors. One of my favorite activities in the action phase is rewards. When you're in the action phase, sometimes it's difficult to think about the end-term goal, especially with weight loss, which tends to happen slowly over a longer period of time. In an ideal situation, it's healthier that way. But if you're wanting to lose 50 pounds, that might take months to happen, or even years. And so it can be helpful to identify shorter-term goals and set up a reward system for achieving those to help keep you motivated. And so on this slide, we have a list of lots of different types of rewards that would be conducive to healthy behaviors. You typically don't want the rewards to be food related, and you want them to encourage activity and health. And so some of these are really simple things that you can do. If there's something you really enjoy doing, like taking time to yourself to read a book or take a bath on the weekend, or whatever it is, having time to yourself, going out with a girlfriend for some shopping, setting up little rewards like that to help motivate you as you achieve your larger long-term goal can be helpful. And this can also enhance your self-confidence. And then finally, people in the action stage tend to be very, very open to receiving help and are also likely to seek support from other people. And so this is a really important element to behavior change. How do the people around you impact your ability to change? Maybe you want to eat healthy, but your spouse or your kids aren't as excited about it. Maybe your friend says that they're going to support you, but instead they're calling you and trying to get you to go out to eat at your favorite restaurant or go get drinks, which aren't going to be helpful for your weight loss efforts. And so sometimes during behavior change, you have to decide who you're going to spend time with and how you're going to spend that time. And sometimes those decisions are a little more difficult. I had a client not too long ago who struggled with this, and she had a coworker who was also her best friend, and they would go out to eat nearly every day and typically for lunch, and typically were choosing places that weren't very healthy. And when the employee wanted to start making healthier choices to help her with her weight loss goal, her coworker and friend did not want to participate in that. And so she was kind of left with the choice that she either makes healthy choices with where she wants to eat, but then her friendship suffers because her friend's not going to go with her. And so it's a very hard decision that had to be made if you don't have somebody who's supportive. So you have to kind of seek out people who have a similar lifestyle, who have similar goals, or who maybe have done this change before and been successful, and work on fostering those relationships, because support's really, really important. The last stage of change is maintenance. And maintenance is often an afterthought. Maintenance involves being able to avoid returning to the bad habits. So we've gone through the action phase, we've made the behavior change. Now we have to focus efforts on keeping up with it and continuing it. Maintaining the new status quo is the goal. And so it's important with maintenance to recognize that we are not perfect, and we're probably going to relapse at some point and get back into that old habit. It occurs for a variety of different reasons, and most of those reasons aren't automatic, but relapse occurs after an initial slip has occurred. You've been eating healthy, you've been exercising, you've lost weight, but then all of a sudden you go to a party or the holiday hits and you start not doing those things, and you might see a little bit of weight gain back. What's really important when you hit a relapse is not to go into crisis mode. You have to recognize that relapse is normal and it happens to most people, and you have to understand that you don't want to beat yourself up, but you want to realize that you have relapsed, and what are you going to do to get back onto the wagon of doing your healthy behaviors. Don't let it kind of ruin your confidence or your self-efficacy, your belief that you're able to change this. If you do relapse, don't be too hard on yourself. Don't give up. Remind yourself that it was just a minor setback. This is part of the process of making a lifelong change, and relapses are incredibly common. And so try not to relapse to the point that it becomes a crisis where you've gained so much weight back or you're smoking so many cigarettes that you have to start very early in the processes of change again. Try to catch yourself early in the relapse and get back to working on those things that you did in the action phase to help you move toward your behavior change.